Good morning. Well, I guess good almost afternoon. Let's get everyone in. Hey, Monica, I'm going to have you join. Oh, you're so great. Thank you. You invited or requested. Hello.
Hey,
Good morning. It's so nice to see you.
so lovely to see you as well. Thank you for the opportunity to connect and share and just be together. Thank you.
Of course, of course. It's been so long since we kind of just had time to talk, just me and you and get on I feel like when we talk, we could get to so many fantastic places. So I'm so excited for this.
But a lot of been happening in the meantime. A lot of exciting things. So
Yes,
no time lost.
so true. Very true. Oh man. All right. So just so you know, I do have my laptop here to keep me in line with questions and keep me a little bit focused. But Um, I do have my first token question of just sharing about yourself and how you're involved in the neurodiversity community and whatever else you want to share.
A wonderful question. I'm gonna take a sip of my lemon water. My mom
Beautiful.
trusts the journey, and I think that's kind of the theme of my story today. Trusting in the journey.
Ah, beautiful. I have not a mug, but just straight water today.
Um, to give a little bit of a background, I was born and raised in communist Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic, and I come from a line of political dissidents. My grandfather was an active member of an underground anti-communist organization called Charter 77, and he was imprisoned for 2 years for his involvement in the mid 1970s. And then my parents divorced when my twin sister and I were just toddlers, and I really never knew my father. But in the mid 1980s, he immigrated to the United States as a political refugee. And, both men were willing to sacrifice at all cost in their search for freedom,
Mhm.
regardless of the severe consequences their actions had on those left behind. But they left a legacy of seekers of light and truth. And that is my heritage, being a seeker of light and truth that has served me well on my motherhood journey. So, um,
I have chills. I'm sorry to cut you off because the light and truth is like the perfect encompassment of who you are as a human and everything I've experienced with you. So that's just beautiful.
I was taught to question everything and trust no one. Um, and at times it's very difficult because trust is so essential to your well being. But there's something really empowering about questioning and finding the truth on your own, and,
Mhm.
and calling a light to come to your life, and then realizing how many like-minded people there are around you. They may not be the loudest ones,
Yeah, yeah.
but they are those who are willing to step out of line with you when the time comes. It's just,
Hmm.
the concept of light and darkness is so amazing. I feel like darkness invades. It's in our faces all the time. It's loud. It clouds our vision. But light is the opposite. It does not invade. It only comes in by invitation. But when it comes
Mm.
from my own experience, it comes in form of people, literally. And
Yeah.
in the last 2 years, since the beginning of the pandemic, when I kind of, few months into the pandemic, that I started practicing this concept of inviting light into my life to fill my body, my mind, my heart, my house.
Hmm.
um, um, I have realized that it came instantly. It took me a while to realize that the answer was instant, and it really comes through people. And so everybody since then who crosses my path, including yourself, I see as an answer to that prayer or that invitation for light to come into my life. And it has changed so much. Our,
Yeah.
our, my life, my personal life, and the life of the session family has changed dramatically um, since that prayer started, and
Yeah.
consistent, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
My background, communism ended when I was 10, and when I was 19, I came to the United States to meet my father for the first time. And I never planned on staying. I always planned on going back, my
Hmm.
education in the Czech Republic. But life
Yeah.
happened, and I started college here, and I met my husband, and then a few shortly years later, we started a family, and we have three sons. Our oldest one, Sterling, is 17. Our middle one, Oliver, is 14, and our youngest son, James, is 9 years old. And James is neurotypical, and Sterling and Oliver both have autism and apraxia. Sterling actually not only has an apraxia of speech, but a full body apraxia, and then some other challenges. Um, but they both use spelling as communication to express their authentic thoughts and feelings.
Hmm.
Um, so, um, and we as a family are involved in a local community of spellers that is
Yeah.
bigger by day. It's amazing just to see how the voices of the non-speakers are being heard, and
Yeah.
that they're not alone. Um, they're not just in their family bubbles, individual family bubbles. We're building a community, and
Yeah.
so very, very. Thank you. I see some comments coming in. Thank you. Yes, authentic,
Hmm.
good word in the
Hmm.
non-speakers world, because even
Hmm.
with intentions as parents, as advocates, as allies, such as you, Erin, we always interpret to the best of our abilities, but we don't know
Hmm.
what's in their brilliant minds and in their hearts unless they tell us.
Yeah.
And as communication has provided that bridge between the body-brain disconnect, which apraxia is, and it allows them to authentically express themselves. I'll show you.
Yeah.
This is pencil leather board, 26,
Hmm.
an infinite possibility of words.
I love it.
It's not pre-programmed. It's not limited to pre-programmed sentences or pictures. It's infinite. And I'm going to talk about spelling to communicate later more in detail. But I think one of the most exciting news is that both my husband and I are founding members of Ohana Consortium, which is a community-based nonprofit organization that is built for and by non-speakers. It is a community co-created by non-speakers, parent advocates, and allies. And shout out to you, Erin, because you are one of our biggest allies. Really
Thank you.
listening to the voices of the non-speakers and advocating for them. Being
Yeah.
fire, a megaphone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amplify their true, real voices. And, we are here. Um, our goal is to create a community where their voices are not only heard, where they're not only seen, but they also have a say. And beyond that not only a say in what is happening in Ohana Consortium, but that they become the directors of Ohana.
Hmm.
We have the board of directors, and some non-speakers have their seats on the board, along with the parents and advocates. And then we also have an advisory board that consists of non-speakers only. Oliver, our middle son, is one of them. But we hope that as Ohana Consortium grows, it's so new, it's still a baby, but grows, and things fall in place, that there is a shift and our non-speakers move from the advisory board to the board of directors, and they take the lead. The goal is that each and one of them decides what they want to do with their life in terms of employment, higher education, social life. You know,
Mhm.
they are here to live lives filled with purpose, intention, autonomy, and they are amazing people. I'm not just saying that because I am a mother of two non-speakers. I have
Yeah.
never met a non-speaker that hasn't blown my mind and
Yeah.
made me a person.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If I could share a little bit, your family was what opened my world to the spelling world. I'm sure you remember, moments of me being like just jaw on the floor, like, tell me more, and how I've gotten so connected to this all. And I agree, I mean, I've been involved in the neurodiversity, from sensory processing to, in the school districts with just like fine motor delays and things like that, just people who learn different or who just experience the world differently. Um, but I too don't think I'm biased. I'm involved in this community, but these non-speakers, minimally speakers, or non-reliable speakers have just all this time. This is going to tie to our one of our questions, but time with their thoughts, time where so many of us who are neurotypical and speaking don't ever give ourselves the time to be there, with ourselves. And I think a lot of these individuals have had all this time before finding spelling or RPM or whatever it is that they use to spell, to communicate, to just, I mean, I could only imagine, and I've learned a lot through these non-speakers about what it is like to feel trapped or encased in their body and now to have their voices heard. However, I do believe that there is some spiritual enlightenment and process that occurs in them because of this process of not having a voice and almost being like forced, for lack of a better word, of, being with our thoughts. So I think I kind of want to jump into this next. I might jump around, but this is making me think so much of that post that you posted. And I remember reading it and just being like moved to tears. I was like, oh my gosh, like Monika's done it again with her beautiful words. I'm going to give you a little like punch in here of, if you guys aren't following Monika, definitely, I mean, she's tagged in this post, go follow her. The things she shares is just beautiful, like reminds me on the daily to just ground and reconnect with myself and the world that we're living in the light. So is it okay if I jump to our third question? Can I read it? Okay.
Yes, and go with the flow.
Yes. Awesome. So yeah, like I was saying, you share a lot about Sterling and Oliver on your Instagram page, and James as well, your whole amazing family. Um, and there was a specific post that was about you were at an Airbnb, I believe, right? And there was a guitar, and you don't know how to play guitar, but you were drawn to this guitar, and you said, I quoted, touch led to rhythm and rhythm led to melody. I felt an overwhelming yearning to clear my throat and be heard. I think that's how my boys feel every single day. I just want to like let that sit. Yeah. So I would love for you to share a little more about spelling and any thoughts and ideas or experiences you went through in this process of, discovering your son's voices.
Thank you. Back to that experience, I have to say that I made this spontaneous, completely out of the box decision to book an Airbnb
Love
for
it.
2 nights
Yes.
to Joshua Tree on my own. I like to be alone, even though I crave being alone.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with the inner self, with nature, with God. To just to calm my central nervous system, and to show up as my best version of myself. I need alone time. But at the same time, and it's so ironic, I'm afraid to be alone, um, especially away from home. And so it was a very spontaneous and a brave thing for me to book that cabin. And before I left, I promised Sterling and Oliver that I would spend an entire day in silence in their honor. And I did that. And I walked into the cabin, and it was so cute. It was like boho, mid-century,
Yeah.
uh, polished concrete floors, cacti everywhere. It was just so beautiful. And all of a sudden, I just felt the yearning for silence. I feel like, and I love what you said before, how, the non-speakers have the time to listen and process so much because they don't spend time, they don't waste their time on nonsense
Yeah.
talking like we do. We say so much that's not necessary.
Yeah.
When they spell, it's so refined. And I'm sure it's because they have thought about it so much.
Hmm.
It's written in their minds, and it comes out as um, like a book chapter. It's so beautiful. Oliver hardly and Sterling hardly ever correct themselves. It just flows. It's so beautiful. Uh,
Hmm.
but I wanted to say again, what they teach me on this journey of non-speaking, of not speaking, but rather listening, is the art of slowing down, the art of slow living, and how we move at the speed of our minds all the time. Our mind
Yeah.
always ahead, thinking about the future, always in the past, dwelling on what happened. None of that we can change. None of that
Hmm.
is over. And it's never in the present moment. My boys are teaching me that it's necessary to move at the speed of our body. And the difference between the speed of the mind and the speed of the body is that the mind moves at the pace of technology, but
Hmm.
moves at the pace of nature.
Oh,
We need
yes.
to, we need to slow down and
Hmm.
back to our roots. What I do, and the boys do as well, uh, I take my shoes off and I walk barefoot every single day. And it has become something I really look forward to every day, to ground myself, to connect with nature, to connect with my inner self. And it's been physically healing, mentally and emotionally healing as well. And I just realized, how disconnected our brain and our body is as well. Neurotypicals or non-speakers,
Hmm.
doesn't matter. We're disconnected and we need to connect ourselves. And going to nature is is what helps me the most. But yes, I did. I did spend the entire day in silence, and it was really amazing to feel the healing coming from that experience. And I did a lot of crying. I shed a lot of,
Hmm.
but also once I empty out my body and my mind from all that baggage I carried around, that I have, as a mom, or as a woman, a professional, being around
Hmm.
people who need you all the time, and you hold a lot of things in. Just
Hmm.
you can't just dump it out anywhere,
Yeah.
right? You hold it in,
Yeah.
but you find yourself in a safe space, preferably alone from everybody else, because everybody, puts you on that pedestal. You're the strong one. It's a very
Yeah.
uh, I because I have to be, but I also am vulnerable, and I appreciate
Hmm.
where I can be weak and can cry, and
Hmm.
life is hard, and I don't know what's happening in the next moment. I don't have it all figured out, but I keep
Yeah.
because it is so worth it.
Yeah.
Uh, and anyway, so I immerse myself in silence, stillness, and slowness to remember who I am in order to um, present to come back home as a better version of myself. Because I know, I we we identify ourselves with our roles, and for the last 50,
Hmm.
my role as an autism mom, it was my identity, was my self identity. That's what, like, anybody asks me, like, so what do you do? I'm like, I'm an autism mom.
Hmm.
It encompassed, is it an English word? Encompassed.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Like, for uh, like so much. And how do you
Hmm.
all,
Yeah.
but an autism mom kind of summarize it.
That's, yeah.
Um, but in that silence, and that stillness, and that slowness, I slowly was shedding the roles as an autism mom, as a wife, as a community builder, as an advocate, as a CRP, communication regulation partner, as a wife that I said already, sister, like all
Hmm.
And I want to say, who is Monika without all
Yeah.
these? Who is she? And I'm still on that journey of discovering of who I am. But I know that she is good, and I know that she's a being of light. And
Mhm.
light, if I allow it to radiate, despite of what's happening around me, it, it's a good thing. It's a good.
Yeah. And
It's
it's powerful.
uh,
Yeah.
so, I spent the day in silence, and if there was anything that came from me that came to me that I would like to share is that we live in a world that is drowning in chaos and noise, and it takes courage to step away from it and do something.
Mhm.
But let's not be afraid to be quiet. And when the time comes, yeah, the rebirth of new selves. Yes, thank you for the comments. When the time comes and you know it's time for you to speak again, let your words come from a place of purpose, not from a place of fear, anxiety, and resentment. Let your words come from a place of purpose, and it will sound differently. People will listen.
Yes. Yes. I call that, I don't know for you, but I say I get like downloads. When I'm in those moments, it's a download from something higher than myself, higher than all of us, that it's like a message. I don't know who's sending it to me. It's just like these words that come and I'm like, wow, that's so beautifully said. Like that's not my thoughts. Like so, and that's exactly what that sounds like. That moment of, that experience of being in silence and shedding and doing so much of that inner work that is a lifelong process. Like you're saying, you don't know who Monika is yet, but you're starting to see it, you're pulling out pieces. Um, it's just in those moments where exactly what you're saying, you slow down, you ground, you step away from all this chaos and the darkness, and you settle into the light. It's that light comes down and it's like downloaded. And then it for me, it's like, okay, now I know where to go next. Like every time I experience that, not only is it like this profound moment that I sit in the moment and really enjoy, but it perpetuates that motion forward for, what's the next impact? How am I going to spread this light download I just got to the community that I'm in, or the people that I surround myself with? So,
Mhm. And I love how you word light again. When you feel that downpour of light,
mhm.
it's
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's clear, and it
Yes.
feels like in your mind it makes sense, but it also feels right in your heart. And
Yes.
you both in order to know which direction to go. I
Yeah.
completely.
Oh,
Well, if I were to summarize
yeah.
motherhood journey
Mhm.
if I were to condense it into one word, it would be surrender.
Oh.
That that's the synonym for motherhood is surrender. Um, because so much of motherhood is about surrendering to the constant change and unpredictability of life, whether you're an autism mom or not. So
Mhm.
motherhood is about having faith that things will turn out all right at the end. And so much of motherhood is about letting go, allowing the heart to open in order to
Yeah.
be filled with joy down the road. And
Mhm.
surrender is the opposite of giving up. Surrender is allowing yourself to to let go of your will, to
Yeah.
let go of your idea of things, of what things should be, of what life should be like, and saying instead, come what may and love it, or I am willing, or that will be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hard. It takes an enormous amount of courage and vulnerability to stop kicking against the stream and allow the current to take you along to a place you never thought you would end up, and yet it's much more beautiful than you ever imagined it could be. But it's okay to be afraid to do that. Being brave does not mean that you're not afraid. I mean, I do brave things all the time, and I'm scared doing them, but I do it anyway
Yeah.
because being brave means that you do the right thing, or you do the thing that feels right in your mind and feels good in your heart. Because, despite of being afraid, that's your path. You need to go, even if you're alone. Even if you're alone and afraid, and you still do it, that's being
Mm-hmm.
not in the absence of fear.
Yeah.
So, it's about courage and trust. So when Sterling was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3 back in 2004, we had no idea what autism was about. Like, we did not, like, we've heard of the word, but I had no idea, did not know anyone. And we thought that with proper therapies and intense biomedical intervention, we could cure Sterling from his autism.
Mm-hmm.
It was just gonna be a short sprint,
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
sprint. Then, when Oliver, at the age of 2, 3 years later, was diagnosed with autism too, we realized that we were in for a marathon, that it was going to be a short sprint. But we
Mm-hmm.
totally missed the point. Because, like I said, Oliver and Sterling's journey is not about curing them from autism. It never was. Their journey is about acceptance and love,
Yeah.
and um, finding new ways of doing things when the doors shut in your face and a window opens. That has been kind of the repetitive narrative of our journey as parents, is that there is always a better way, and if
Mm-hmm.
it shuts in your face, sometimes it's for a reason, and usually it directs you in a different way that shows you something more amazing that you would not discover if you were stuck on that little, in your ways. You
Yeah.
have to face someone else, you know, and say, "Thy will be done," and surrender. So, um, I have a few notes here that I want to share, and a lot of them are actually Oliver and Sterling's words. So if you see me look a little bit to the side, I'm reading. I'm reading
Yes. Please
because
share.
I try to misquote. Their words are so powerful. Um, so, their journey, like I said, is about acceptance and love and finding joy despite of trials, not in the absence of trials. And the boys
Mm-hmm.
that everyone around, and they teach me and everyone around them that hope is the reason we get up after we fall, and that love is the invisible force that keeps us moving forward. And that, like I said, when the door shuts in your face, a window will open and
Mm.
offer a different view, a different perspective. So our lives changed in the spring of 2017, about 5 years ago, when our mutual friend Donmarie Gay into our home with letterboards in her hand and introduced our boys to spelling as a form of communication. The most amazing thing is that without our knowing, Sterling and Oliver already knew how to spell and read.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
taught at school or at home. I mean, we read books to them, but I never taught them how to spell, how to read. And, it is a phenomenon, for the lack of a better word for it, that
Mm-hmm.
um, that is common among all the non-speakers that I have met. I have actually never met a non-speaker
Yeah.
that already did not know how to spell and read before they touched the letterboards for the first time.
Yeah.
And their family did not know. Their parents did not know. Their teachers did not know. And it's all of them. Oh no, they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It shows you that desire
Yes.
to um, to live a life of purpose, that brilliance of mind that they teach themselves, and not just English. I mean, Oliver knows multiple languages. How did he
Yeah.
learn?
Yeah. Their sensory system. Yeah. It's just, it's taking it all in, and we talk about sensory sensitivities and how
Yeah,
the brain, just everything is being absorbed essentially. And I love that you highlighted that, because there's been so many times or experiences where, letterboards come out or spelling is observed. And the first question is, well, my son doesn't know, or my daughter doesn't know how to read. He doesn't know how to spell. Like, he can't do that. And it's like, oh, but, so that presuming competence piece, which I know you and I are very into, and we integrate into every, aspect of our life, I think is the first stepping stone for what you're explaining.
I think I should like design a t-shirt that says Prism Competence, and then, design t-shirts for Oliver and Sterling that say I am the evidence.
Yes.
On it, because you're right, that has been our experience with the special education system, is
Mhm.
one after another shut in our faces. Even though they observed the boys to spell, they just could not get over the fact that the boys knew how to spell and read without being taught.
Taught.
And I asked Oliver, why is that? Why do you think? And at 10 age, back then in 2018, he spelled, because it just tips all of their belief system on its head,
Yeah. Yeah.
system the system, the special ed system. And I'm not referring to the teachers, therapists, occupational therapists who are there because they want to make a difference. It is because
Mhm.
the system is still standing, but the system
Mhm.
itself is just a termite infested building that one day will fall on itself. It
Yeah.
has, there is just, it will have to either change, but I think, how can you change something that is so archaic in a way?
Yeah. So rooted, and
Yeah,
yeah.
not willing to go with the new,
Mhm.
and the evidence, basically,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm trying to communicate is not an evidence based. I'm like, he is the
This
evidence.
is evidence. I love the idea of the shirts. Like, I am the evidence. Yes. 100%.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research out, so that's pretty.
Yes. In due time.
Yes. Well, it changed our lives. Our boys they got fluent pretty fast, especially Oliver. And I felt like for the first time in my life, I really got to know my sons, what they felt, what they thought. I learned that Oliver was funny, he was cracking jokes, and
He is.
it was so spiritual. And I was just like, I felt tempted to like drop on my knees and bow to them and say, who are
Yeah.
you? What
Yeah. Yeah.
spirit would choose to come in
Hmm.
the world in this body?
Yeah.
Experience to hear people talk in front of them, to have professionals attach labels to them, that didn't presume competence, that label them as intellectually disabled, no,
Mhm.
he'll never learn to talk. No, we can't give him age appropriate education because he hasn't proven himself. They heard
Yeah.
that all their lives, and I'm like, who would be willing to take this
Yeah.
on them and carry this weight? Only the most valiant ones.
Yeah.
I'm just in awe of our non-speakers who were willing to come into this world and carry this burden. But I feel like their bodies are the perfect vehicles for this journey. The
Yeah.
world is autism because it needs to change, and they are the
Yeah.
force of change. And
Yeah.
you and I are so privileged to have our part in this. As parents and allies,
Hmm.
kids, we are being changed in the process as well. And it's a
Yeah.
painful process, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I appreciate, and I'm happy you bring up the piece of painful too. It is as amazing and how exciting it is, like you're saying, to find your son's voice and experience it. It's not all, here's the board, let's chat. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of dedication, there's, so many like motor pathways that need to be reprogrammed into that like intentional movement, like you were talking about the apraxic body, and the frustrations for the individual and the CRP. And so it's definitely, I always like to highlight that I love the light, and I do think this is still the light, that even in those times that feel hard, there is that light, that you are pushing through, you are doing hard things, you are working towards this bigger purpose
Mm-hmm.
of making the change. And I just the way you said, these individuals, oh, that's what I meant to say, at the most recent, the Empowered to Connect conference, they had a panel of non-speakers, and we were able to, ask questions. And this is something I did bring up. I said, this is like, you guys have me like roaring and ready to go. Like my energy is through the roof right now. I want to ask you, how do you stay? Like, how do you keep going at that level? Because there has to be moments where it's like, oh, okay. And then I got to like get back up to it. And one of the scholars said, number one, it's the community that I'm fighting for, like knowing that this fight is like for my peers and myself and all those to come is the biggest drive. And then a big word that came up was just having hope. Just keep holding on to that hope that things are going to change. And that's why we're doing the hard work.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's.
Hope is such, that's the reason why we get up after we fall.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hope. There's
Hope.
something that we keep pressing forward. I love how you mentioned pain, because I think pain is, whether it's physical or emotional or mental,
Mm-hmm.
is part of our non-speakers' lives. And, we live in a society, just look at the medical system. The symptom management approach is focused on numbing pain. You have
Mm-hmm.
a Tylenol, you
Yeah.
have, it's just that fear of pain and that tendency to numb it at all costs, instead of accepting it, acknowledging it, and working through it. And I feel pain is necessary because it leads to change.
Mm-hmm.
If we were always comfortable, we would have no motivation to change. It's
Yeah.
pain that, it's like that buzzer in our ear saying it's time to change. It's
Yeah.
for something different. It gets us
Mm-hmm.
out of our comfort zones, out of our bubbles, out
Yes.
out there. Um, and I love how you said hope and then community. Hope and
Mm-hmm.
it goes together. A community-based life. I feel like, again, we have become so individualistic, and the spellers teach us to come back together
Mm-hmm.
as one, not individuals alone,
Mm-hmm.
but one as a community, and build
Yeah.
a together. So, I remember there was in 2018, 18 was a huge year for us because 2017, 2018, our boys were fluent and learned so much. And there was one lesson, Sterling and I had a lesson. I was teaching him about Stephen Hawking. As
Yeah.
who is known for his body condition, the Lou Gehrig's disease, that, he had this beautiful, genius, incredible mind trapped in a body that deteriorated over time. He lost his ability to walk, then to speak, to even
Yeah.
feed himself. He needed help. And during that lesson, I kind of asked him, how do you relate in what way would you relate to Stephen Hawking? And I thought he would say, I have an apraxic body that's really hard to control. When you tell me, Sterling, pick up the pen, I might like stand up and run around the room instead, but my intention is on the pen. It's just my body didn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So sometimes it doesn't. And so I thought he would say something like that, but he spelled, and let me find it and read it. He spelled, Stephen Hawking laid the idea that a hard life is totally worth living. Stephen Hawking laid the idea that a hard life is totally worth living. And
Yeah.
that was about 18 months into spelling. Shortly after that, Sterling acquired this, nobody has a name for it, this condition, this movement disorder that stripped him from his ability to walk, to dress himself, to use the bathroom on his own, to feed himself. And also, he stopped spelling conversationally. And I thought, wow, that lesson prepared me in a way. I needed that quote. I needed Sterling's words.
Mm-hmm.
I expected him
It's
to
like,
spell, that he
yeah.
has a toxic body and can move like Stephen Hawking can move his diseased body. No, he said Stephen Hawking laid the idea that a hard life is worth living, and I needed that when when I mourned that boy who used to ride his scooter 2 miles from our home to the
Yeah.
every day, the boy who would climb up the rooftops in his rollerblades with no ladder inside. I'm like,
Yeah.
how did you end up on the roof?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the boy who would just jump on a trampoline nonstop, always on the move,
Mm-hmm.
um, and was spelling all these amazing things, opening his beautiful mind and heart to me. And it was gone almost, not overnight, but within a very short period of time. It was gone, and I mourned and I cried, and I felt crushed that after, finally hearing my son's voice, and
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter, it wasn't coming from his mouth, that his
Yeah.
words were falling off his fingertips. When he spoke, everyone listened, and his voice was loud and clear. His voice was
Yeah.
loud and clear, but it was taken away from him, and it was taken away from me, and I mourn that loss. But
Mm-hmm.
so it's been 3 years of silence. But just this spring, and Sterling still goes to Transcending Apraxia, which is a local clinic for those who are not local or are not in our community, where every week he goes and he has a lesson and he practices touching and touching the letterboard, well, looking at the letterboard and touching the letter he intends to touch at the same time. It's just so hard for him to look and point at the same time because his
Yeah.
body's moving. Just to look takes so much in the direction he's supposed to take so much physical
Mm-hmm.
effort. But he had a new communication partner who was in training, Gigi. She had this most beautiful energy about her. She was
She does.
and she talked to Sterling about her life. And it was something I realized was such a wonderful thing she discovered. Instead of focusing on the spelling technique, and the motor planning, she just talked about her day. It was still related to the lesson in some way, but it eased Sterling's anxiety and it took off the pressure for him to perform. And you know, he's
Yeah.
so kind. He wants to please everyone. He wants people to see that no, I'm not doing this on purpose. I really just
Mm-hmm.
don't have control over it. But if you help me, I can. Please
Yeah.
help. And so much of the time, we don't know, we don't realize. And later, I will talk about what's the best way to help our spellers to be efficient on the letterboards. But her calm energy was the foundation. And they had a lesson on emotions, which is a hard topic to spell about anyway for non-speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so personal and it stirs all these emotions. And when you're emotional and anxiety goes up, your motor planning goes down. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, and as an OT, we
Yeah. Yeah.
spend the next 20 minutes talking about this. It's hard to
Yeah.
be anonymous. It's hard to it's hard to express yourself when your motor planning is not at its best, right? Because these words come from your mind, and you have to break the and disconnect to be active.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes anyway. He spelled his first conversation, his an answer to that question. It was a single word. It was the first conversational word in 3 years, and I haven't heard one since. But
Mm-hmm.
um, he asked, what emotion resonates with him, like what emotion would describe him, and it took 20 minutes to spell that single word, but he spelled determined. And that single word completely changed my perspective. I had his story completely wrong. I saw Sterling as a boy who lost everything. I thought that was his story, the boy who
Mm-hmm.
lost everything. But that one word changed my perspective of my son. And instead of looking at him from outside, I saw him for that moment from within, determined. His story is not that of a boy who lost everything. His story is that of the resiliency of the human spirit, and that the impossible indeed is possible, and that he's the living testament of that.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that the biggest stories we have in this life is the false beliefs we have about ourselves and others. And then we fabricate these stories based on these beliefs. And then we tell these stories out loud. And Sterling taught me that the most powerful story and true story is not the ones we say, but the ones that we live. And like I,
Yeah.
it's a living proof that the impossible is possible.
That was so beautiful, Monica. I feel like I am emotional that I can't even create words, but thank you for sharing that because I knew Sterling, not maybe not during the rollerblading moments, but I've heard those stories, and and a lot of the things we worked on, I think it was a different season, and to hear the perseverance and just the grind and the grit that he has, we knew it was in there, and I think through different experiences it could get lost. It could get, kind of removed again, going back to that dark and light. That light kind of gets overpowered by the dark and we forget about it. And then it comes back and it shines down. And that moment of, determined and just that alone, like you said, 20 minutes, to really get his body to each individual letter and to, regulate to, I know you touched on it before, but think about, I always remind speaking individuals of when you're on stage talking, or if you're in an argument, or you're doing a big presentation, or you're doing a live, is it hard to get your words out or formulate your thoughts? And that is in a healthy neurotypical brain, in a brain versus a brain that has neurons firing that are completely out of the individual's control, essentially. So now add the emotions to that whole piece of him working through his body movements 20 minutes later, like there's no better word.
Yeah.
He was determined to spell that word to let us know that that is where he's at in this season of his life. And he's continued to carry it, and he's still in there fighting and, doing the work.
Thank you for saying that, because, the words that come to mind when somebody new meets him, in school setting is,
Mm.
oh, he is non-compliant, or,
Yeah.
so reactive. And, his body is reactive. But, the story Sterling shows about himself is, I am tenacious. I am
Mm.
there. I am strong. I am so strong. And
Yes.
I surrender. I have mastered the art
Yeah.
of surrender. I'm hopeful. I will never give.
Mm.
I have a story to tell. But listen to me to tell the story.
Mm.
I will tell my, not you. I will tell
Yeah.
the story. And
Yeah.
I wish I could say that Oliver's journey was a smooth ride, but it wasn't either.
Mm.
John Marie, was blown away by his speed of fluency. He got fluent really, really fast, and we went through this honeymoon period. But about the same time as Sterling fell into silence, Oliver started experiencing severe anxiety and panic attacks. And
Mm.
with me when we were spelling together openly, conversationally. And I was in this mindset of, I'm going to push through. I don't mind if he bites,
Mm.
scratches me again. I am his mom. I am
Mm.
entitled to hearing his words. If not me, who? And I felt,
Right.
like I said, so entitled to be the one who would spell with him, because it was hard and I can do hard things. And I did not want to lose his voice either.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so painful to not hear Sterling's, to not, see, I guess I should say, see Sterling's words.
Yeah.
Um, I couldn't bear the thought of not spelling with Oliver. And it took me a long time to realize that I wasn't doing him any good. That
Yeah.
I was so attached to what I wanted, not, like kicking against the stream. Like I was at this,
Yeah. That's stream.
not moving anywhere. I was stuck in
Mm-hmm.
to hear his voice, to spell with him. And I realized that there was a journey to be taken, a different path. It took all the courage and humility I had to
Mm-hmm.
put the letterboards down for a while. But before I did that, Oliver spelled, not with me, with John Marie. He spelled for my birthday, this birthday wish, and I'm going to read it to you
Yeah.
because that was what I needed to hear in order to let go. So again, my son again was the one mentoring me,
Yeah. Yeah.
showing me the way. Um, that was in 2018. Dear Mom, thank you for going the extra mile all the time. Sometimes I can't believe that you became my mother. Surely life threw you some surprises, but you handled them with grace. I really appreciate your patience with me and Sterling. Destiny put voice to my hands, and your love showed them intricate ways to compose my story. Thank you for spelling with me no matter what my mood is. Believe not all the sounds you hear me mutter. Rather believe the love in my heart. That's the best idea. Love, Oliver. That was it for me. I don't know
Uh,
but it hits me each time,
yeah.
as destiny put voice to my hands and your love showed them intricate ways to compose my story. I was like, I'm not allowing you to turn the next page in your chapter
Mhm.
of life. I'm keeping you stuck on this one page, and I have to let go in order for you to turn that page and see what's next.
Mhm.
Those words for the next 3.5 years. That's how long it took for Oliver and I to get back on the letterboards. And we did, we spelled lessons, but conversationally,
Mhm.
I did not know it was in his mind and in his heart. For three, and
Mhm.
he would spell at the Transcending Apraxia Clinic, and that
Mhm.
was a lesson I needed to learn that it was okay for other people to step in and take my place. Not as a,
Mhm.
but in other roles. That Oliver, a life filled with purpose is not life reduced to your family bubble.
Mhm.
Life in a community. And that
Mhm.
Oliver needed people in his life that could open the door for him. And I had to let go of my little boy. And that he's not little. He's a young man, almost 15 years old, and
Mhm.
needs people in his life, multiple communication and regulation partners, not just me. But and I felt so entitled to be the one, and maybe the only one,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I wanted to be like the other moms. I was the cool mom,
Yeah.
and it was just so amazing and mind blowing. I felt like after everything I sacrificed and he sacrificed, we deserve this. And I had to let go. It's not my story
Mhm.
to tell, it's his story to tell.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
me. Surrender.
Ah, yeah. And I want to say interesting, but not even interesting. It makes sense how each of your boys kind of just, again, at that right time when you needed to hear their words and
Hmm.
like they knew I'm sure energetically pick up on what, I need to do this. I need to get these words out here for my mom to help her along that next path, to help us together as a family, as a community to take that, push past that boundary or whatever stream we're fighting up against. They know I think divine timing is what I'm hitting upon.
I love
So
and I'm actually now looking back, hindsight. How do you say it in English? Like looking back vision. What is 2020 hindsight? Is
yeah, hindsight. Yep. In hindsight.
literally. I see now we had to have this experience in order to show other families like ourselves that it's a roller coaster. You get on,
Hmm.
and it's an evolving journey. It doesn't mean that you put the letterboard in front of your child once they're fluent, and it's maybe in some cases, not in ours, but I think that's why we can help others is through the pain and suffering and the hope and the community we have built and become part of in the process is that you're not alone. Yeah, I can tell people you're not alone, and I can relate through empathy. Empathy through
Hmm.
so valuable. But if
Yeah.
there's something that I could give a piece of advice to parents who are new on the letterboards or
Yeah.
feel stuck or not progressing, this is actually just two things. And,
Hmm.
both of them come from my boys and also Don Marie, my mentor friend, and really the reason why you and I are talking today, because she was the one who walked into the doors of so many families and
Hmm.
unlock the real voices of our non-speaking sons and daughters. So the first thing is stay calm and regulated And what it means is CRP stands for Communication and Regulation Partner, but I think it should be RCP because the regulation comes before communication. And
That's,
you can't fake it. You cannot fake your calm. You have to learn
yeah.
how to be present in the moment
Hmm.
of any what ifs, or I'm not sure where he's going on the letterboard, or we had a hard day, or he's saying something and you latch onto the spoken word. We have to learn how to be present in the moment, and this is how I learned to be present in the moment. It's I need to go in. I need to go back to nature and engage my senses. That's how I do it. I guess being present in the moment means that you take what's around you with your senses. So I take a deep inhale and I take in the sense in the room. I feel the touch of the letters on the letterboard with my fingers. I I listen to the noises. I really take in the present moment. I noticed the light that shines through the window onto Sterling's hair or Oliver's hair. I'm just like really engaging my senses in the moment. And it was a process to learn. And I mentioned nature because that's how I learned it, by being in the nature, touching the trees, hugging the trees, walking barefoot, rolling down the hill,
Hmm. Yeah.
my bare skin to the sun early in the morning. So, so yeah, connect huge. Because Oliver felt I need my regulated partner to be smooth and fun. You have to be regulated. You can fake it. And if you're calm, I'll be calm. I keep obvious. Then the second thing, when you feel self-conscious, like he's going open. I don't know what he's telling. I'm not keeping up. Is
Mm.
be playfully curious. That is a big motto that Don Lee was telling me, and I did not understand what playfully curious meant until I went to Josh. I spent 2 nights in that little boho cabin and then one night in the desert. Alone, the desert, the dark, by myself, something out of my head. But I was driven by playful curiosity, not by fear about, well, what will let's see what's gonna happen, if I go. And it was beautiful. I never felt was I did not feel I was alone, but I didn't feel lonely. Felt watched over by stars in the sky, and I felt
Mm.
by the warmth of the desert. The desert is teeming with life. It's hidden, but it's there. And I think that's how we with our spellers. Even though it's hard, because we know everything that happens to that point, and we keep our mind it. Now let go of it for a moment, and just be totally curious about, well, what will happen? What will happen? What he's gonna spell? Listen, listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are two really, really great points and so important and so much easier said than done.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, you can't fake it. There's, again, a lot of that inner work that CRPs have to do, and
Mm-hmm.
um, self-awareness and their own mind-body connection and groundedness to then ground the individual they're supporting. So thank you for highlighting those for sure. I do want to, I feel like you and I could just sit back and have meals delivered. We could probably talk all day. But I do want to be mindful. I want to be able to make sure that everyone can listen. I'm aiming for a little around an hour. So I would love to switch, well, not really even switch gears, but speaking of like doing your own inner work as a CRP, as a mom, as a sister, a wife, a human, you share a lot about your yoga practice and just your mindfulness. So, how really has that made a difference in your life? When did that come into your life? Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yes. So back in the spring, when Sterling spelled the word determined, I was
Hmm.
inspired by that word on so many ways. I was like, I want to know what it feels like to be determined. So I jumped headfirst into this program called 75 Hard, and it's not a body fitness program. It's more like an um, um,
Mental toughness.
toughness. Yes, thank
Yes.
you. Mental health program. And so for 75 days, I did two 45-minute workouts. One had to be outside. I had to drink a gallon of water. I was writing in my journal and reading 10 pages of nonfiction. And there were other things I can't recall right now, but I did not miss a day. And at the end, I came out as a woman who knew how to be both determined and who mastered the art of surrender at the same time. But I always made sure that one of my workouts was yoga practice. And I've practiced yoga since 2006, on and off in studios. I never went to the gym. But during the pandemic, I started practicing at home. And it really has been empowering to me to just put on a yoga podcast and take out the mat and do my best. So what I have learned from my yoga practice is that some poses are really painful and very natural and easy for me. I have very
Mm,
so anything involving splits or
yes.
it's I can turn and twist, but don't talk.
Those hips.
So
Yeah.
I didn't. So at first I tried to force the poses, but that was very painful. And I realized that you can't force the yoga pose any more than you can force anything in your life. It will just not happen. You have to surrender. So I breathed in that pose and I didn't give up. I didn't come out. I stayed in.
Mhm.
But as soon as I surrendered, the pain disappeared and I was able to get deeper in it. So yoga, again, it's very much connected to the art of surrender, slowness, stillness, being present in the moment. And I don't practice just yoga. I walk barefoot outside. I take this 3-mile hike every day around the lake barefoot. I get a lot of looks, but I've seen another person recently running, jogging barefoot.
Yeah.
It grounds me. It connects me with Mother Earth. I sleep better. I am mentally and emotionally there and
Hmm.
more balanced. There's something about walking on dirt that has not been treated with pesticides, herbicides, uh,
Yes.
weed killers, and is teeming with microbiome, the beneficial bacteria that gets into your body through the large pores in your feet and populates your gut, creating
Hmm.
optimal environment for your health, improves your immune system. It's just amazing when you start digging into it, just how you cannot connect God from nature and nature from man. We're all connected
Hmm.
as one. We have that spiritual, that physical, that emotional, mental sides of us that
Hmm.
are connected. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I think I had messaged you. I think I saw you post on your story that you were walking barefoot, and I shared with you. I was like, no way, I've been doing this too. And I walk not nearly 3 miles. I walk a short loop with my dog, literally in my pajamas, barefoot, like my eyes are barely open, but it's the first thing I do in the morning
love
for
it.
that, that morning sun grounding through the earth. I forget what podcast, but there's research for sure about how our circadian rhythm is
Yeah.
reset. So like if you travel time zones, it's recommended that you walk barefoot, on a porous, natural, untreated surface, the beach, dirt, whatever, grass, whatever you could get your feet into, to reset and recalibrate your system. And oh my goodness, I feel like we could do a whole nother talk on
Yes.
health and all of that. We should.
Yes.
Yeah. But the microbiome, all the gut, all of our bacteria, I just learned this too, in our gut actually have circadian rhythms too. So these tiny microscopic, you know, gut bacteria that are good and help our bodies need circadian rhythms too, to know when to be awake, to help break down our foods and produce energy and keep our bodies and our systems regulated. So we could go on a deep dive, and I think we will.
Love
We'll
it.
definitely get another.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you taught me about the connection between walking barefoot and circadian rhythm. I have read this book called Chasing the Sun, and
Mm.
it talks about circadian cycles and rhythms and how our problem, as a society, we're getting sicker and sicker, and it's not, it's because of our disconnect from the sun. We,
Yeah.
our ancestors, we don't go down with the sun, and we don't get up with the sun anymore. And so our circadian rhythm is, and all of our organs and systems have their own circadian rhythms, not just our.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
this is an information that you added now to my knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
that the microbiome has its own circadian rhythm too.
Mm-hmm.
And just imagine the variety of the microbiome. So you have multiple circadian rhythms in your gut, just from the microbiome alone. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely have another session.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man. All right.
I would like to say in closing, and
Yeah.
much for this space,
Mm-hmm.
is the power of the mind and the mindset. Um, that we operate on the mindset of scarcity most of the time, and we need to switch it to the mindset of abundance. So my mindset of scarcity was, that's the narrative. You say, I don't have enough of money, time, energy, resources, love, in
Mm-hmm.
my life. Um, and my narrative was wrapped around, I don't have enough energy. And once
Mm-hmm.
I run out of energy at the end of the day or in the middle of the day, I'm useless. I really believe that. And I had to switch it to the mindset of abundance. And I switched the narrative from, I'm so tired. I don't know how I'm going to get through the day. Oh, I wish I didn't have to go there and there. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
help Sterling. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I was in that mindset for years. That's PTSD, and a lot of moms,
Yeah.
autism moms, studies have been done that autism moms uh,
Mm-hmm.
experience the same trauma as war veterans that have been in war combat. It's the state of constant hypervigilance.
Like, yeah.
You're
Yeah.
always on alert, high alert. You might get help, but hardly ever any breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and we can also dedicate another session to that. But
Mm-hmm.
I changed it. And Erin, this is what I tell myself every morning that I wake up. I tell myself, I have enough time in my day. I have enough time and energy in my day to be with the people that I love and do the things that make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything that I experience that day and everyone who comes to me is part of that narrative. And it's, the circumstances might not change, but my attitude does, and it makes all the
Yeah.
difference. And so consequently, the circumstances change too, and it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
So I could talk more, but
I know. I'm like holding on because I don't want to stop because you are just, like I said, a wealth of knowledge. And honestly, so many words that you're sharing today were things that I needed to hear for me just personally. So thank you for that. This call, sometimes these calls can be like, oh, I'm nervous and like, oh, but knowing it was you and hearing all that you have shared has been so grounding for me. So thank you for making that impact on my day and all the listeners. I'm going to tag your Instagram account. And then I will also share this on YouTube. So I'll be able to download it. And so we could get these words, get these thoughts the way, just this different, newer way of thinking that needs to become the only way of thinking for our spellers and, our non-speakers. So thank you for being the light.
likewise, thank you so much for the opportunity to share the light. Love you. Thank you.
Love you. We'll talk soon. Bye.